Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome to episode 31 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. It's your girl, Stacey. We're here another Saturday. My lips are dry, so I'm going to put on some some lip gloss. Hopefully, you're enjoying your Saturday. Getting out, we're getting into fall weather, so you know how that goes. But I hope you're all doing well. Waiting for people to come on in. And today we're going to be talking about G.P.S. So I'm going to wait as you come on in. You're going to see a little bit of me still getting myself prepared because y'all, it is sometimes what it is. Hey, Tiffany, good afternoon. How are you doing? Hey, Kathy, how are you? Good morning. How's everybody's Saturday going so far? Hopefully you have plans to do something enjoyable, good, and you're cleaning. Saturday is your cleaning day, huh? I'm okay, Kathy. I don't know. My voice sounds ultra scratchy all of a sudden. I don't know what the world is going on, but I'm good. I'm good overall. So as I continue to put on my earring, just kind of want to give you guys a little bit of an update. Still working on my writing. I have made a bit more progress since the last time I spoke to you all, so that is good. What else can I tell you? I've been doing a lot, y'all, a lot on TikTok. So I believe a few of you might be on TikTok, but again, when I first started it, I was like, really? TikTok? I don't know if this is going to be like a thing or a space for me to really, oh, you just woke up? Good for you. Sometimes that's important. Get your rest in. People are just always, having to be on the go and running. And sometimes we just need to sit our tail down. And that's the truth. So I'm glad that you got some rest. Hopefully you feel rested. But yeah, I've been on TikTok for a few weeks now. And it's been an interesting journey. It's something that, well, I don't know. I don't know what I expected, to be honest with you. I don't know what I anticipated. I don't know what I thought might be the case for me, but it has been really, it's caught me kind of by it's caught me off guard. Like that's the best way to say it. It has caught me off guard. I feel like I found a good community of people on there that, one, love God, and two, are really just working on themselves. And that's always helpful, especially when you're kind of doing that same thing, when you're in a space where you're looking and trying to figure out what you're doing and trying to be the best version of yourself. I don't know if I spoke about it last week or not, but one thing that I will say is, this healing journey that I started, and again, started before, but really took it like seriously and put a lot of work into it in February, has been extraordinarily eye-opening and grounding. And sometimes it is so important. Well, I've recognized, I would say in the past couple of weeks, how important it is to revisit like where you started, like your starting point. And so today's topic is GPS. For that reason, we're going to talk about the starting point. You don't have TikTok. Yeah, I didn't have, well, I think I got it definitely during the pandemic. That's when I signed up for it, just because I was like, what are all these people talking about, these TikTok dances that people are doing? And people are like, oh, did you hear this story? It's available on TikTok. And so I was like, okay, I need something to distract me from, the mask wearing and all of that. And so for me, that's when I took the venture in to figure out what it was. And there was straight like foolishness on there. And I will tell you, sometimes I needed that. That's really what I needed. I needed to see, people attempting to dance or singing very badly to songs that they love, just because they were trying to do something to offset the feeling, because again, that was such an unstable period for all of us. And so that's kind of why I signed up, and it was fun. I used it for the keys. That's literally why I went on there in the initial part of me joining it. However, I was starting to venture into what were called lives, which is what I'm doing right now, talking to people live. And there were a variety that were interesting. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, there's a different side to this whole platform. And then obviously you all knew, you guys saw me in real time try to struggle with not being able to go live on Instagram and then trying to do it on here. And at that point I was not able to fully do it on here right away. And then I found out I could do it. So it's been a thing, y'all. It's been a journey. You guys have been kind of helping me navigate the entire time. And then I also tried to set up a Facebook so I could do that and stream that live at the same time. And I've had a little bit of a hard time trying to establish that. But and I think it was Tiffany who said it. God's word is going to happen. So and what you're doing is going to keep going forth. And those are the type of things that mean a lot to me. Those words of of belief in what I'm doing and support of what I'm doing. And I've gotten them from all of you that are on here right now and some people that are not on here right now. And those things are important. Although, we're supposed to encourage ourselves, it's always good to have somebody say, you know what, Stacey, I'm proud of you. Or Stacey, what you're doing is not for nothing. Or we see value in what you're doing. Because everybody doubts themselves. Even as I'm working on my healing journey, it does not mean I've reached a point where, I don't need like every once in a while a good job. We see you. I think everybody needs that. So I try to do that for other people, but it's great when it happens for me. So like I was saying on TikTok, it's been really great finding a community of people that I can do the same thing that I'm doing here. See, you agree, you see me. Yeah, I found, and actually I just finished your chapter. You're mentioned in the book, girl. So I just finished your chapter. But what I will say is the things that you may be experiencing individually, yeah, everybody needs it. I agree 100%. The things that I have found on that app are very much, it's interesting because I'm on there every day. So with you all, I'm doing this once a week, partially because people have stuff going on. And I didn't really, when I start to do my lives on that other app on TikTok, I didn't really know if people were going to come on, to be honest with you. I'm like, who wants to sit here? If you can go into a room and listen to people just playing music or cracking jokes or people just being silly. I mean, there are people literally that are on that application just like doing paint by numbers, and people will sit there and watch them and comment on it. Right. So there's, I've seen a woman who was folding socks, and that was her live. Like she was literally folding socks, and people are like, oh, I never folded my socks like that. And I'm like, is this really happening right now? So there's definitely a lid for every pot in there. That's for sure. But I didn't think that people are going to be interested in having these conversations. And I have to tell you, that is the furthest thing from the truth. There are so many people that are on there that, are feeling such heaviness. Like this week in particular, I will say, and we've kind of seen what's been going on, obviously. But there's been such a spirit of heaviness, and it's been awesome to be able to kind of connect with people on a more consistent basis, kind of real time, to pour into them or to be able to hear what they're going through. The last, I think it was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I can't remember the title because I try to title them very much based on what I've been talking about with you all. So they're kind of getting delayed reaction to what I have been talking about with you all. But what I will say is yesterday in doing my session, because there was such a spirit of heaviness, I prayed I prayed on live. Now, typically, like I haven't done that here, and it's not that I wouldn't do it here. My kind of video, folding clothes. See, you should go on there, girl. There's a whole community. And there's also a huge community of neurodivergent moms. And I have a few that I've connected with that are trying to just, figure out how to be the best moms they can be, and giving each other tips and techniques, and also being able to support each other, because obviously being an autism mom, while it's an honor because you were chosen to do it, can also be very difficult. And I think it's awesome to have a community of people that can kind of, I don't want to say vent, but be able to process it, and you need that. And I think that that's awesome. So there's a lot. I know that on the surface, it seems like kiki, haha, and there is that too, but there's so much more. And so for me, I was honored. People literally gave me prayer requests, and I was able to pray for them about things that they were going through. So my phone needs the Lord with not enough space. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Of all people, I 100% get it, because my phone stays in a space of not having any space. I'm constantly trying to erase and delete. This week, I deleted so much off of my phone, and still towards the end of the week, it was like, there's no space. I'm like, how is that possible? So so that was my kind of catching you guys up to what's going on with me. Today on Sipping Tea with Stacey T, are we having tea? Of course we are. Today's tea is another peace tea. And this one is as they call it, strawberry. Strawberry lemon peace tea. So this is it. Let's check it out. I'm going to be literally drinking it out of the can today, because I didn't want to pour it in the other thing, because it cools it down faster, and I don't want that. So this is it. Ooh, try to get it again. If you've never had it, that's it. Y'all, this is really good. Really good. Much better on the sugars, Tiffany. I know that's your concern for me. Syrup with the peace sign again? No, this is much better than the other stuff. Yeah, this is actually really tasty. I'm like trying to let how like you drink something and you just kind of like go on with it. I'm trying to let the flavors like literally sit there for a second. So it's just strawberry lemon. So what I will say is I taste strawberry, I taste no lemon. So I'm gonna wait a second and then try to. It's good regardless, but I don't taste any lemon whatsoever. You have me worried? No, I don't. You don't need to be worried, but I appreciate you. But yeah, I didn't. Those last two things, I didn't. What you saw me drink on here was what I drank. I think I might have had one other sip to like. Maybe I was over exaggerating. I was like, no, I wasn't. Yeah, I am waiting to feel an aftertaste. There's no aftertaste. It's not like sometimes you have something and you're like, ugh, because after it sits. But I don't taste any lemon, so that's why I'm hoping that if I try it again in a second, then maybe I will, because I was drinking water before, so it shouldn't influence my taste buds, but we'll try it momentarily. All right, so let's get started talking about G.P.S. And, for those of you who don't know, I've been taking lots of notes about my content and subjects in this called Shine Your Light. Because I want to make sure that when I'm talking to you, I don't miss certain things. And I think it's very easy to have conversation with you all regardless, but I digress. Girl, you're killing me today. You're hilarious. So in general, a G.P.S is what I was thinking about, but not in the way that we're used to talking about it. I think I did one called Lost and Found about, finding yourself earlier on in one of my episodes. And I think that kind of still pertains in a way, but it's going to be a little bit of an offshoot from that. So a G.P.S in general, by the way, I had to look up what it meant. I was like, does it have to do with signal or satellite? It doesn't. It's global positioning system. And some of you probably already knew that. And I know I've heard it before, but for some reason, I just want to make sure I was giving y'all accurate information. See, I could have just pretended like I knew, but I was being honest and telling y'all I had to look it up. So, when I was starting to think about this topic today, the song obviously that came to mind, or maybe not as obvious, is Amazing Grace. I once was lost, but now I'm found, blind, but now I see. And, as I've been going through my healing journey, what I will tell you is there's so much about myself that I thought I already knew. And there are so many areas. What it's done is expose so many areas where I didn't see myself, right? So areas where I definitely gave myself zero grace, but I didn't really even go into the discovery of like, who are you? What is it that you do? How do you think you show up in the world? And I really, because I'm an introspective person, I think it kind of tricks you into thinking that you already are doing that. And you are, but you're doing it on a surface level. And I've told you all before, or maybe I've told people on TikTok, that for me, one of the things that's been noticeable about this journey, and that wasn't something that I initially had seen or thought about, was that for me, this process is really about not just doing the surface level work, but it's really about going into and uncovering things that I've done a really great job at hiding over years, which means for me, it's about digging out the roots. And even for any of you who have done any planting, and I'm not a planter girl, y'all, not interested, but I have planted before, right? So when you plant things, your intention is, to put it in soil that's good, healthy soil that has nutrients already in the soil. And then potentially you might have to weed around the area, or you might weed around the area before you put the, the seeds in. And you might even put nutrient rich soil in to kind of work with the soil that's already there. You may fertilize the area. You may aerate the area to make sure there's enough oxygen in the soil, all the things, right? And then you put in, you might carve out specific areas where you want to plant the seeds based on, where it's located. Is it going to get sunlight, or maybe you don't want it to have too much sunlight? So there's lots of things and, thought that goes into planting something so that it's a successful harvest, right? So when you put those things in the ground, and your hope is after watering them and caring for them, that they grow into the plant and produce fruit. Well, that's all of our job as, Christian, as believers. We want to make sure that what we're doing is, planting root, taking root somewhere, solidifying what the word of God to be, and then, bearing fruit, which means bearing fruit. Yes, it means, having the fruit of the spirit and all that stuff, right? So it does mean that. However, what it means is, the fruit is supposed to feed others. Other people are supposed to be able to come to know God because of your relationship and all of that. Making a healing journey workbook as people do the work. That's actually a very good idea. You should get started on that. No, that's actually a really good point. You're trying to give me extra work. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. God bless your heart. Sister Thompson, prophetess. So, what I will say is this, right? A lot of the work that I had done to do all that stuff is, if I'm doing it now consciously, if I'm like making decisions or planting something, I'm being very intentional about where I'm planting, who I'm planting with, blah, 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 right? That's all intentional. Who am I spending, time, energy, effort with? Who's going to be able to further the work and the word of God? Who am I being able to, and it doesn't mean that they're going to become a minister, right? It means that maybe they then bring it to their families that don't know God, and so on and so forth. So that's the hope for me. Even doing these, I'm hoping I'm leaving a seed with you all, that you all can then bless, bless other people, that you're able to show, hey, I see that you're going through this thing. I was on this podcast a few months ago, and they were talking about, this feeling of, being lost and not knowing who you are, and how that impacts the decisions that you make. So all of that is what my hope is for this. So my seed bore fruit, you digested it, and then you continue to plant and so on and so forth, right? That being said, when you're doing your healing journey, it's not about what you're moving. It's not so much about the moving forward. Now, what you're doing is unwrapping things or unpacking things that happened prior so that you can move forward, but you can't think about the future quite yet. You have to really look into and dig into the past. And so as I have been doing that, there's been a lot of things that I have, there have been some things, I don't know if there are a lot, but there have been some things, some areas that I have unearthed that I really thought that I had done the work of eliminating the problem or eliminating the situation or an area where I fell short. Like I really felt like that was the case. However, what you'll recognize is, and this is going to consistently happen, there's no way to avoid it. And I think I spoke about it a bit last week, is there's no way to avoid the fact that you're going to be tested. As you go through your healing journey, God always does. I mean, God does this. And I'm sure all of you have experienced this. You feel like, okay, I know that my sarcasm has caused people not to want to connect with me. And so I need to dial it back with some people. They don't appreciate it. It may cause them not to even think I'm, a serious person, or what I'm saying about God is serious or whatever. So you've made that like concerted effort. You've made that particular effort not to do that thing. In my case, what I've noted, test upon test in the end, that's for sure. Quiz, test, and they're not open book. They're not, and you don't know when they're coming either. Surprise, clear your desk, everyone. The test. Thank you so much. So excited. Can't wait. So you have these things that happen, these tests or quizzes that take place. And I think for me, one of the things that I've recognized is, like I said, if you feel like you've already done the work, you can get a little arrogant, right? I don't know if you've ever taken a test or had a test and you're like, I don't need to study for that. I know that. Like it is what it is. Like, I'll be fine. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time. And for me, that was many of the subjects. Now, if you're talking about math, no. But in high school, many of the subjects, I was like, I don't need to really put a lot of effort or energy into some of these tests because I got this. And in most cases, I was blessed and that was the truth, but it wasn't always the case. And I think that has come to my remembrance as I'm navigating this journey right now, because there are 100% times where I feel like, oh, okay, this test is here. Okay, I'm good. And then what happens is I get the grade back. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Now, back in school, I've told y'all that sometimes I argued my test scores. With God, I don't really feel comfortable arguing my test scores. So, God, are we grading on the curve? Because this score you done gave me, I don't know if this is really fair. I think that we may want to revisit how you exactly scored this test. Take them over if you fail. They don't go away. They don't go away. Right? Especially God says they never go away. It's like, surprise, we're here again. I'm like, I didn't invite you. And don't wipe your feet on my carpet. Like, don't come in. Don't make yourself at home. Beat it. But unfortunately, you do have to retest if you do not pass. And that's what you have to expect walking into a healing journey, is you have to do that. And the reason why I bring all that up is to say this. I had to look at G.P.S. a little bit differently, because, a general G.P.S. is something you use when you're trying to find something for the first time, or you feel like you get turned around. Now, we didn't grow up with G.P.S. I mean, literal maps, paper maps is what we really grew up with. And then it started to progress into a variety of things. And now there's a bunch of different things you can use to navigate, or even find out, if you want to know where, officials are. There's apps for that. So there's apps for all these things now, but we didn't have that. We had to do things the old school way. So as I'm looking through, how I'm navigating this journey, what I'm noticing is that, like I said, I unrooted things. However, I didn't make sure that none of the pieces of the root, because a root, when it grows into the ground, doesn't just go straight up and down, right? So you can pull out something and you're like, oh, because some vegetables actually are the root, like that's the part you want. So you pull it out and you get the thing, but there's still these little tentacles that grew. And if you're not careful and you haven't pulled out everything, something is going to grow back. Now, it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but it left a residual. And As we navigate, and the reason why I keep using the word navigate, beyond it being one of my favorite words, is that I'm talking about GPS, and that's really what it does. It really helps us to try to figure out, the direction that we're headed in. It helps us to figure out the speed. I mean, it calculates so much, right? If you look at your GPS, it tells you the speed at which you're traveling. It tells you when there's blocks in the destination. It might tell you to reroute yourself or recalculate when you're going the wrong direction or you haven't moved in the direction that you should. And so that's what some of the stuff that I've noted. And obviously, when I was looking back on, and I know typically you're going to hear me talk about, Stacey as a kid, Stacey in middle school, and I'm still going to touch on those pieces. But I wanted you to understand that even this journey, as I'm navigating this journey, I still have to go backward in order to go forward. It doesn't mean I have to revert back to those old ways or accept those old ways, but it also means that as I'm trying to move forward, I can't beat myself up for areas where sometimes I end up in a ditch, right? Every once in a while, you're going to have road construction and you didn't maybe allow for time for that. You didn't see it coming. It could come out of somebody, it could be a final destination moment, right? The logs fall off the back of the daggone truck. And it's not something you could prepare for. You expected them to have their, themselves all together, and you expected to be able to go to your destination freely. But there are going to be things that happen, especially, I mean, anybody who drives on the highway, you've known that, you've seen that. And sometimes I feel like I'm driving on a motorcycle and a motorcycle, literally you're on that motorcycle and there's nothing that protects you on all sides, right? You might have a helmet on that might protect your head from bugs, or you might have a bug guard on that might protect you from that. But other than that, and you might have knee pads on that will help you, but all that does is it braces you. It doesn't fully protect you in a way that a car may. And again, a car may not as well, but it's not going to give you that layer of protection. GPS gives you a heads up. It does. It gives you a heads up on lots of things. It tells you, to prepare for traffic. It might tell you, hey, these are the two different ways that you can go to get to the same destination. Do you want to go highway? Do you want to go back roads? Do you want to avoid tolls? And thankfully, Jesus paid it all, so we don't have to pay tolls, but you pay your tolls on the highway, y'all. It does. It informs you if there are accidents. There's so much that a GPS does, because really, as we navigate this journey, it's really God that is giving us direction, right? So when I refer to GPS, for me, it's really God positioning Stacey. That's really what, for me, how is he positioning me? It's God positioning Stacey. How am I allowing for him to give me a heads up on the accidents that could be ahead, on the people that don't mean me any good, on the decisions that I might make that are not good or they are good, on, times I need to speed up, on times I need to slow down, on times I need to not leave my home at all. If you are really in a position that you want direction, right? You have to allow for those moments. So when I do go back to, thinking about Stacey as a kid, I was really thinking, what are the moments where I did that? Where are the moments that I said, okay, you know what, God, you position me? Now, I will say there was a lot more of times of me saying, okay, God, I'm going to let you lead ish. Right? I'm a still, I wouldn't get in one of those cars, the self-driving cars. I'm not built that way. No, thank you. I'm not doing that. But that mentality of a self-driving car says, you know what? I'm going to give up control. I'm going to concede. It's the same as what do we have? Cruise control. But in cruise control, literally, you still felt like you were in control. And in these new cars, you can legit not even sit in that seat. Right? You cannot sit in that seat whatsoever. You can sit in the passenger seat and let the car drive you to work and be working on a project, and it stops and slows down and it moves over to the right and the left. See, no. But when you are saying, okay, you know what, God, you're the driver. Exactly. No, thank you. God, you're the driver, you're the pilot, whatever. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to let you position me. I'm going to let you tell me where I need to move, the times I need to move forward, the times I need to, stop, or the times I need to, reverse, whatever it is. That's, the space that I'm trying to navigate right now. I've been navigating it all year. However, as you go along this journey, and any journey you take, but as I've been going along this particular journey, I've been noting more things as they get revealed to me. And I've just been sitting in like silent introspection about, okay, I hear what you're trying to say. It's like, again, I was talking to you about the test. It's like, okay, you're leveling up, Stacey. You passed that test. Good job. That's great. We're going to move you into this class, right? Now we're putting you in this advanced class. Getting to the advanced class, y'all, does not mean that the class before doesn't come back and try to, reclaim you. And, this week in particular, I will say that I 100% had a test from or quiz from that last class, and I failed like F-. And it probably looked like I did a plus. F-. And what I will say for me is I was disappointed in myself. That when people have ever said, oh, does, when this happens or when that happens, how does that impact you? Or, if somebody says something about you, like if somebody would be like, oh, you're big. I'm like, I can see myself. I know. Like, okay, gotcha. So that type of stuff isn't, if it's from somebody and I don't care for them, then I have to make sure that I'm not quick with my mouth, because he's not through with me yet, y'all. But I have to make sure that I'm not quick with that. But when people have been disappointed in me, to me, that cuts deeper. It's always cut deeper. When I felt like I disappointed people or myself, that's always been the harder of the disappointments, if you will. And so in this instance, I really felt like I disappointed myself. I felt like I disappointed God. I felt like I just was feeling like, and I'm going to tell you, it was simply me getting angry. And this is the thing. Getting angry within itself is not wrong. Like, you're allowed anger, all those things. However, I have to recognize that how I handle myself I'm sorry, not how I handle myself. I was just talking about the root. It's important to make sure when you have a second after you have your reaction or after you fall short or whatever it is, right? To look at the why, which means to look at the root. And the root of it was that I was hurt. And instead of saying, hey, what you did hurt me, or what you said hurt me, instead I was like, blah. Right? That was the reaction of it. And then after, I was like, really? I thought you had this under control. I thought that like things like that weren't going to phase you in that way. So I was disappointed in myself. I felt like literally I threw the car into reverse and then backed into 6 cars. Now, isn't that dramatic? No. Are there going to be still times that as I'm working on, moving forward in this healing journey, that I fall short? 100%. I'm a human being. But the same grace that I tell people every week to give to themselves, I don't give to myself. And although I would love for people to give it to me, I have to recognize that I may not always get it from people. And that's a very real, and actually, I'm actually in a good space that I'm recognizing that. And that I didn't let it get to the point where I couldn't function, or that I couldn't progress, because for me, I'm very hard on myself. I've told you guys, I've always been hard on myself with tests. So when I felt like a failure, like I failed this test, part of me just was like, I can't even be doing this. How am I going to get up here and talk to people about, healing, when clearly this is an area that's still like the bear gets poked and raw. So I truly felt like I flopped, and I didn't want to get on here, and not just with you all, with also with TikTok, and talk to people about healing and how we have to give things to God and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying blah, blah, blah to discount it. I'm saying blah, blah, blah because I felt like I didn't do it. And so that was a challenge for me. And I had to really, I sat and I remember just like sitting in like calm and calming myself and like literally saying, okay, Stacey, if somebody were to come to you and say to you, hey, this is what happened, and I didn't intend to like lose my cool, but I lost my cool, what would you say? And I would say, okay, have you thought about why? And so the same thing that I was doing in this moment of asking myself why I lost my cool or whatever, was recognizable, because I was saying to myself the same thing that I would say to everybody else. Why did you react that way? So what it told me is this: it was a good checkpoint. It was a good test or quiz, if you will, because it allowed for me to recognize that I need to go back into that area and look for some roots that I had left there. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get upset again. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get angry again. But what it will do is allow for me to have a moment when I am feeling upset or I'm feeling disregarded or devalued or whatever it is, to be able to articulate, hey, instead of just going rah and acting like a beast, is for me to say, you know what you did hurt my feelings. Now, in truth, that's harder. So I was looking back and I was like trying to look at myself as a kid and recognize that communication issue that I had as a kid, when I would tell people or articulate how I felt and people would make fun of me for it. I didn't, and I'm aware of that, right? Fully aware of that. And I feel like I had made peace with that. But what I recognized is it had morphed into different areas. So what it was is not so much the full communication of it, but what it was is recognizing the feeling of not being heard, or people, or assuming or feeling like people didn't care how I felt in a moment. And so instead of, having a conversation saying, hey, I don't feel like you care about what I'm saying or feeling, what I would do is I would say nothing, and I would just internalize it, compartmentalize me, right? That was my that is, I guess, a superpower that I'm looking to make unsuper. But that's what I was recognizing that I was doing. It was different, so I didn't recognize it out front. I think that sometimes if we get the same test, somebody's coming at us acting crazy and we're used to seeing that crazy, then we can react to it in that kind. But when emotions, and for me, emotions have always been layered, because what I've recognized is that by having people kind of make fun of my emotions and how I functioned as a kid, is I never felt safe being fully emotionally invested in my own self. Like, I didn't even feel secure in my own emotions. So I tried to, for myself, hide and compartmentalize how I felt. So the times now that I'm having a reaction that it seems like something that wouldn't even need a reaction like that, is because I have had a hard time having that conversation with Stacey, not even with anybody else. It's not about what somebody else has done or not done. It's literally me and myself. So I'm not sure if any of you have ever had, an experience that has made you look at how you communicate, or look at how you process people not really, or seemingly, because again, I can't go into someone's head and see if when they're speaking to me, if they're speaking to me out of kindness. Now you can detect when somebody's being kind, but most times, but there's a very real challenge in trying to, pin on, why did somebody talk to me that way? Why did somebody assume, this of me, or what have you? And that makes it very tricky. So as I'm trying to navigate, right, I'm trying to move forward, I look back to that, and looking at that young person, I experience this all the time. Yeah, it's very, very tricky. It's tricky because even though God says us, for example, I told you guys sometimes in your navigation, right, as you're on the road and your GPS tells you to stop or slow down, or there's traffic ahead, so you have to stop. That doesn't mean you're supposed to be stuck, because a GPS literally gives you ways to navigate out of being stuck. But that's what this healing journey is, right? God is giving me techniques. He's giving me grace enough to navigate how I was feeling stuck. Now, just like if you're behind the wheel of a car, you have the ability to make the decision if you want to stay in the lane that you're in, or if you want to get over and then get off. Now, you might not even know, you're like, I don't even know this area. Maybe I should just, and this is why some people do, I don't know this area well enough. I'm just going to stay on the highway and just be, sitting here and be patient. And then 10 minutes goes by and then they're like rocking back and forth. And they're like, why didn't I get off of that exit? I should have just tried it. I'm in a space where, when I'm trying to move forward, and maybe I get stopped because I need to look at something. Because that's the other thing. When you're stopped, your awareness, I mean, you should always have awareness if you're driving, y'all. Please. Please be aware. And if you're a passenger, please also be aware. There's importance for that, right? So you should be paying attention, but there's something that happens when you're stopped. I can't tell you how many times I've been with a driver and they're like, I didn't even know there was a house over there. Why? Because typically they have to go past or fly past something. And now, because they're in a moment where they have the ability to stop and actually look around in a very real way, they're able to see things that they wouldn't typically see. I feel like sometimes God is trying to tell us, and when we have these, moments, these pauses, these stops in what feels like, for me, it felt like a stop in my journey. It's because he wants me to look around and see something that I might just breeze past and think that it's okay, or think that it's healed. And it's an area that would come back later because I haven't really truly done the work that I need to do to fully heal it. So don't always look at your, the stopping or the times where I think sometimes people make assumptions as how others feel, which can also be an issue. 100%. I can't get into someone's head, but what I can do is, but this is why I'm talking about the ability to communicate. It doesn't always easily happen, especially if you haven't felt safe doing so. Now, is that entirely the other person's fault? No. May they, depending on the nature of your relationship, may they have some ownership in the fact that you are not able to? Maybe. I don't know the nature of all the relationships, friendships, working relationships, romantic relationships, whatever they may be. However, that being said, you can only really handle how you handle what's happening, right? So you can only focus on what your reaction is to what's going on, or how it made you feel, or how it made you feel numb, or how you felt disrespected, whatever it is, right? Only you can do that. The problem is why people make assumptions often is because they don't feel safe in having a conversation. So it's easier to make an assumption. And often people make assumptions based on past experience. Sometimes it's past trauma, but also it's past experience. If we're going to be honest, if you've already seen somebody treat you like hot garbage, then like your instinct is to be like, okay, that's what they're going to treat me like again, especially if they haven't done any of the work to show anything different, right? So all of what you said is true. All of what you said is true. So like I said, I have experienced a variety of touch points throughout this because I'm still chugging along, right? We're still moving forward with our healing journey. And, when I looked at my childhood, there were a bunch of touch points of areas where, I felt lost. And, the first time being called the N-word in school, or, other stories of racism and things like that obviously made me feel lost and confused. Like I said, my friend not bringing me on vacation, that made me feel lost and confused. Going into high school and not seeing anybody who looked like me. And the funny thing is, that was always the case. But for me, it reared itself a little bit more when I was in high school, potentially more because I was older and I was hearing conversation as opposed to feeling the feeling of being disconnected. Not being chosen to go to the prom because, the family was like, no, you can't bring a black girl. People not wanting me to have a lead in the musical because I was black. There were all these moments and the reason why I bring them up as moments that I felt lost is because I felt like I had contributed enough to the communities that impacted me in that way. And they all made me feel like turned around. And anybody that gets turned around, you can, like, if you keep getting turned around, like, everybody that's played pin the tail on the donkey, right? They spin you in a circle until you're nauseous, and then they tell you to find the stupid donkey, right? So that's what, happens when you're in a situation that, you know, you have these incidents, these forms of aggression that happen that kind of change your direction. Thank God my child doesn't understand racism, even though I knew she was experiencing it in the second grade. Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. And, going back, there are obviously points where I may have noticed it before, but the N word was fifth grade. That was a fifth grade special for me. And while I can kind of joke about it now, I was not able to unpack what it meant for me in that moment and how it impacted how I saw people and saw, educators and saw my fellow students and how I saw myself. And anything I have to say, while you may see how things impact other people, you can't be concerned about that in your healing journey. Why I'm saying that, and it may sound selfish, it's not. It goes back to so many things and so many times where you're told to not prioritize yourself and not, put yourself in a position to be first, or, that's selfish, all this thing. You talk about me, 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 me. Well, okay, I get it. Everything doesn't revolve around you, but you revolve around your own world, right? So you have to take care of yourself. You have to do things for yourself. You have to have, time to yourself. All those things are crucial. And even if those are 5 minute, 5 minute breaks where you can have your favorite cup of coffee or go for a walk or, sit in silence or get a massage or, any of the things, it could be like you just waking up, and praying and thanking God for another day, whatever it is, those moments. I laugh when people say, things shouldn't be all about you. If you look at the word, if that's important to you, there are times where God was to himself. Jesus was to himself. And it was intentional. He needed to silence any noise, any input, any influence, and he needed to be able to focus, right? And those times were not just focusing to be, to be selfish. Those were focusing in order to prepare for a purpose. Because if you're not focusing on you, how do you fulfill purpose that you yourself were brought here to do? So those moments of, like I said, those incidents that happened and continued to happen, and then you have, dynamics of, housing situations, and you have dynamics of people passing away and losing loved ones, and all of those things can feel super rerouting, recalculating, recalibrating, however you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, regardless of those things, because things will continue to happen, life will continue to life. My job is to make sure that I have said to God, if I'm wanting to move forward and if I'm wanting to do what it is that I'm purposed to do, then yes, God, please position me. So that's why I said, for me, when I look at G.P.S, it's not just, a global positioning system. It's God positioning Stacey. Now, that being said, I was talking to, I don't remember if I was talking to a group. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. And I was being honest about the fact that as Christians, sometimes we just do things out of habit, right? We don't investigate on our own. We don't seek for understanding. We just, anything we were told, okay, cool. Any song that they sang, okay, cool, we're going to sing. I actually ministered a message. I don't remember when it was. It was several months back now at this point. And in it, I was talking about the fact that we do a lot of things just out of habit. But one of the, one of the things that for me has been interesting is I've always been very in tune with some things that I did not want to do. So, perfect example, the song I Surrender All. Y'all remember the song, I'm sure, right? All to Jesus, I surrender, all to him I freely give. I never sang that song in its complete form, right? So it would be like, they would get to the point and be like, I surrender. Because the all was not coming out. Yes, I surrendered ... Because I was honestly, if I'm going to be completely transparent, and I am, I surrendered some. I didn't want to. I was like, I don't think I could sing all ish, right? Because it wasn't all. I want to take a little piece with me as a parting gift. I would even, sometimes you go up to the altar and you're like, okay, God, take this away from me. But no, let me keep that one. Let me keep that piece. I know I made a whole cake, but I'm gonna just take a slice. I know I'm supposed to give you the whole cake. I'm gonna take this little, just a sliver. I'm gonna take it for me. I know you're busy, so don't worry about it. I got this. I got this sliver. And when you're in a healing journey, however, the thing is that all of those slivers, all those slivers you done took, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen what do you call it? Ever seen a teacher clean out a desk like my mom used to? But you know how kids will cram stuff in their desks and the teacher has already told you like, hey, you guys need to clean out your desk, especially like around like the holidays and stuff, because they don't want any type of situation. So they're like, make sure you clean out your desk, make sure it's all nice and clean. This should be on this side and whatnot. And there would be some kids, the slivers do add up. But there'll be some kids that are like, yeah, I'm all set, Mrs. Thompson. I cleaned up my desk. And then she'd go by and see that their desk was full. Yeah, no. I'll just say she assisted them. I won't tell you the technique, but she assisted them in starting that cleaning process. Right? So the same thing is true of us, taking little slivers and hiding them away, squirreling those things away, just like squirrels literally do for the winter time. They know that there's not going to be a bunch of things for them to eat. So what do? They start scavenging and storing up all the things that they can. But the problem is at a certain point, you have all these slivers. Now you have more than the cake. How did you get more than the cake? Because you started taking other people's cake and you start taking other slivers from other people's cake. And now you have almost 2 full cakes. And God was telling you to give the first cake to him. But instead, what did you do? Because you kept that and then you started taking pieces from other people, now it's multiplied. Now you have more literal weight on you and then more spiritual weight on you, right? So it's important to make sure that you are, when you are in the space that you are going through this journey, that you're recognizing that all that stuff is going to be exposed. All the things you've tried to hide, even from yourself. And I think that's what I did not get, is because I was doing the work, because I was making sure that, I was trying to, be transparent and be introspective. And I've honestly been like that because I'm an analyzer. I sometimes overanalyze. So I've always been like that as far as like really wanting to see like, who am I? How can I be better? Like that's kind of how I'm built. But that being said, you can't, like, this process is something that you can't prepare for in a way that you feel like it's just going to be something like business as usual, because it's not business as usual. It is literally pulling apart things that you've worked hard to hide, even from yourself, and especially from yourself. Because if somebody had told me that, small things sometimes that people do was going to make me like explode like the Hulk, I would never never assume it, never think it. And I think the reason why, as I kind of talk about that moment in particular, is because I had just told y'all, I think I had told y'all that, this past couple of weeks has been like a little bit harder than typical for me. And I was really proud of how I've been handling things in so many ways with people that had disregarded me or had hurt me or whatever, right? Had just not held my heart in regard. And when things like that happen, you expect for people to spaz out. You expect for people, as the young people say, to crash out, right? So you expect the crash out. But I didn't do that. And I was so proud of myself. So proud of myself. And this is the thing, when you proclaim things, right? I should have been prepared because I just told people I was so proud of myself for handling things with an even keel and giving grace and being calm and all. I was so proud of Stacey, right? So God was like, okay, test is scheduled for next week. I guess she doesn't know it though. Right? So the very next week, what happens? Crash out Sally, or I should call myself Crash Dummy Stacey, came onto the scene and just let loose. So frosting and all. Yeah, now I actually want a piece of cake. Tiffany, be quiet. Yes, I want a piece of cake. But yeah, I think that it's important to recognize that you're going to have moments that are like that. I had them in, like I said, elementary school. I had them in middle school. I've had them, in college. I had those moments where I totally turned around, don't know which direction I'm going in or heading in. And there were just so many incidents that, and this is the journey of life though. There are so many incidents that are supposed to turn you around, but if you have the right positioning system, regardless of if you get turned around, you're just going to right yourself, right? You're just going to recalculate and then turn yourself around and go in the right direction. But it's important that you have access to that positioning system and that you're making sure the positioning system that you are utilizing is the right one. That being said, that means sometimes you might have somebody who's like, man, turn that. I don't know if you've ever been in a car where somebody's like, man, I don't need no GPS. I am the GPS. Run from those people. Run, right? And it's not to say the GPS is always right, because I think we've all like used the GPS and that thing would have us like, in the middle of Quincy Harbor, or it would have us, making a turn that doesn't exist, that type of thing, right? Because it's not always correct. Sorry if you're hearing somebody beeping, like, I apologize for that. Crash out, recognize, and then get up. Yeah, that's true. That is true. But again, that's the important thing is, okay, you went the wrong direction, you crashed out, you had an accident. Those things happen. You have to prepare for those mentally and emotionally. But you have to have the right, at the end of the day, your biggest and most important thing is who is giving you direction. And throughout my life, I have, even when I was spun around, I always had that as a centering piece for me. They say Jesus at the center of it all. I'm so grateful that has been the case. So even when I disappointed him, when I was going in the total wrong direction and he was just letting me, and he was just watching me and beckoning me to turn around, but me being hard-headed, sometimes I was like, I got this, I'm good, or sometimes, again, we also play on God's grace and mercy. I know, and I've told y'all, grace and mercy are sick of me, but I'm still like, hey, y'all, hey, grace, hey, mercy. They're like, hey, Stacey, so excited to see you. But at a point, God's grace and mercy, doesn't exist forever. I mean, his word says that it doesn't exist forever. So we have to be mindful that we are connected with the right satellite, which is God. He's our direction. He's going to give us, and lead us and guide us into all truth. And so that's something that we have to be thinking about. And then the last thing that I want to say is prepare for freedom in knowing that you're not doing your healing journey. You're allowing God to do it in you. Right? So I know I keep saying I'm on my healing journey. I'm on my healing journey, but I'm not leading it. I'm receiving of God, I'm trying to let God fully heal me. Right? So I'm letting him do the work. I'm in the car. Or I'm in the warehouse, I should say, even better. I'm in the warehouse and he just has me keep looking in boxes. And he's like, okay, Stacey, let's open this box. And I'm like, God, I don't know that we really need to open that box. And he's like, okay. And he flings the lid open. And then here I am just looking through it. And sometimes that means crying. Sometimes that means being confused. Sometimes that means feeling turned around. But I just have to look back to him and realize if I keep walking in the direction of his voice and his word, then I will always be walking in the right direction. So my GPS is God positioning Stacey. All right, y'all. I hope this was helpful to you all. I hope it was a blessing to someone and to all of you. I hope it's a little nugget you can take away, and even if you're not using it in this moment, that it will bless you in the days and the year or weeks and months and years to come. With that, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself and please to your girl a measure of grace. I'll see you next week on Sipping Tea with Stacey T. Bye, y'all. Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate you.